my name is Sathya Devadoss, and today we will be building a firefighting robot. The code for this project will be in the description in the GitHub link. For this project, we're going to be needing 2 solid cardboard platforms, 2 Ls, 2 motors, 3 multiple M3 nuts and M3 60mm screws, and 4 M3 30mm screws. We're also going to need double-sided tape, metal bars, breadboard, a fan, a ISP driver, motor driver, wires, motion sensors, M3 screws, M3 60mm screws, a motor, and a Arduino. We're going to grab our L clamp and our piece of wood with the holes drilled in. As you can see, the L has one short side and one really long side. We're going to use the short side and connect it to the holes. Now we are going to grab our M3 long screw and insert it through the hole. We're going to also grab another one and also insert it into the other hole. Now we're going to screw them both in. Now grab your M3 nut and screw it into the M3 60mm screw. Then tighten the M3 nut with a wrench or nose plier. Also use a screwdriver. This is how it should look like. Now we are going to grab our other L shape. We're going to also locate the shortest side of the L and put it to the holes. You're going to grab our M3 60mm screw and screw it into the holes. You're going to do the same to the other hole. Now we're going to grab our M3 nut and screw it onto the M3 60mm screws. Now we are going to tighten it using a nose plier and a screwdriver. Now we're going to grab our motors. We're going to locate the pointy side of the motor first and the deep hole. We're going to get our M3 30mm screw and insert it into the holes. This is how it should look like after adding the empty screws. We're going to make sure that the wire is facing our right side and insert it into the L's holes. Now we're going to grab our M3 nut and screw it into the M3 30mm screws. After doing this to the other M3 screw, this is how it should look like. Now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to grab our M3 30mm screw, insert it into the holes. Make sure that the wire is facing the right side and insert it into the L's holes. Then we're going to add our M3 nut and screw it onto the M3 screws. Make sure to tighten both of the motor screws. This is how it should look like. Now we're going to grab our wheel. As you can see in the middle, there's like a oval shaped hole. As you can see, there's another oval shaped hole on the motor. So we're going to attach the wheel onto the motor and make sure that's coordinated. Now we're going to do the other side. This is how it should look like. Now we're going to grab 2 small screws and screw it right in the middle of the wheels for both sides. This is how it should all look like when all the screws are in place. It should also be a bit movable. As you can see, there are 3 holes in the front of the piece of wood. We're going to grab our support wheel. We're going to also grab our 3 M3 60mm screws. 3 of them. and insert them inside the holes. We're going to also take M3 nuts and screw them on top of the screws. It should look like this when you're done. Now we're going to get another 3 M3 screws and screw them on, but only halfway. It should look like this when you're done. Now we're going to insert it into the 3 holes in the front of the cardboard. It should look like this. Make sure that the support wheel is on the floor. Now we're going to add another 3 M3 screws and make sure that it's evened out and it's staying balanced. It should be not movable and like that. Now we're going to grab our iron bars and our object sensor. As you can see, the object sensor is as long as 3 holes. We should remember this measurement. Now we're going to measure the double-sided tape and the metal bars, measuring it to 3 metal holes. And then we're going to grab our scissors and mark the 3 hole length. And then we're going to cut it. We are going to remove one of the sides off the double-sided tape and stick it right onto the 3 holes on a metal bar. Now we're going to remove the other side of the double-sided tape and then attach the object sensor right onto it and make sure it's right in the middle. And make sure that the light bulbs are facing outwards of the iron bar. Continue and do the same for the other 2 object sensors. After that, all 3 should look like this. Now it's time for the wiring. We're going to choose 3 jumper wires of the same color and make sure that they're male to female, all 3. We're going to get another 3 of the same colors and male to female jumper wires. Now we're going to get 3 of the different color jumper wires, male to female still. Now we're going to grab 3 of our same color jumper wires. In this case, we're going to use red. Now we're going to take a close-up of the object sensor. As you can see, the pins are 5 volts, ground, out, and out, A out. We're going to stick this red color on the 5 volts one first. We're going to do the same to the other 3. Now we're going to take our other 3 same colored jumper wires and connect them to the ground pin on the object sensor. Now we're going to get our 3 multicolored jumper wires. For the first object sensor, we're going to insert a yellow wire, connecting it to the out pin. This time we're going to use a light blue jumper wire and insert it into the A out pin. Now we're going to take a dark blue jumper wire and connect it to the A out pin. Now you should have 3 object sensors complete. Now we're going to grab our car, along with our complete object sensor. Now we're going to leave it at the 3rd hole, right at the corner of the car. Now we're going to grab our second object sensor and put it again to the corner at the 3rd hole. Now we're going to grab our 3rd object sensor, but this time we're going to put the 3rd hole right on top of the screw. Now it's time to measure for our double-sided tape. Make sure to leave 3 holes from the metal bar hanging outside of the wood cardboard square. We're going to want our double-sided tape to be 2 holes long. So we're going to measure it with using the metal bar and then cut it. Now we're going to stick it onto those 2 holes we measured on, but only under it. Now we're going to unpeel the other side of the double-sided tape and stick it back onto the car. Now we're going to do the other side. Again, we're going to measure it using the iron bar and calculating it to 2 holes. And peel off one of the sides off the double-sided tape and stick it right there like the last one. Again, stick it right at the edge of the corner. Now we're going to start with the middle one. But this time, we're going to calculate for the hole that's going on top of the screw. So, we're going to calculate it 1 circle under where the screw will be going. Now we're going to peel it off, one of the sides of the double-sided tape, and now we're going to stick it on. Make sure you leave one hole empty, then you could fit a screw inside. Now we're going to remove the other side of the double-sided tape and stick it on, but make sure you put that hole through the bottom of the screw, like this. And it should look like this. Now we're going to get our M3 nut and screw them halfway across the screws behind the front area of the cardboard piece. It should look like this once you're done. Now we're going to grab our other cardboard platform and tighten it on top of all the screws to make a second platform. Now we're going to secure it from the back using M3 nuts. This is how it should look like when you're done. Now we're going to start adding stuff to the second platform. First, we're going to need our Arduino, our breadboard, and our motor driver. First off, we're going to grab our breadboard. Since we bought this with the kit, it has a special film of double layer tape on it. But if you do not have this, then you're going to have to get your own double-sided tape and stick it on. But it doesn't matter where you put it as long as you make it fit. Push it on it gently to make sure it's firm on. Now we're going to grab our Arduino. This one, it doesn't matter where we place it. This time, we're going to make sure that the pins are facing off the edge. But for this one, we also do not have double-sided tape already on it. So we're going to have to measure it. We're going to see the length of the Arduino, and we're going to then make a mark on it to make sure we know where it is. Now we're going to cut it. Now we're going to peel one of the sides off the double-sided tape and stick it right on the middle of the Arduino. Now we're going to remove the other side of the double-sided tape. Now it's time to place the Arduino. Make sure that you have enough space in the front of the car because we're going to be needing it soon. Now we're going to place our motor driver. Once again, we do not already have double tape on it, so we're going to have to measure it for ourselves. Thankfully, we already have a piece that's already well fit for this job, and so we're just going to peel it right off and place it already. After peeling off the other side of it, we're going to have to make sure that the pins on the motor driver are on the outside of the back of the vehicle. Now we're going to grab another steel bar. Now we're going to count up to the 5th hole. And right before the 5th hole, we're going to bend it at a 120-degree angle. Now we're going to grab our electrical tape and surround the 4 holes where the bend area is. Well, then our machine does not self-circuit. Once you're done taping, it should look like this. Okay, now we're gonna get our other motor, but for us, our wires were too short, so we're forced to solder a jumper wire to the wire from the motor. This is my end result. Now, to make sure that it stays on, we're gonna use some electrical tape to wrap it up. Now it's time for the other wire. As you can see, I'm wrapping the small wire around the jumper wire and then wrapping in the soldering metal. This is the end result I got for this wire. Now, once again, I'm going to use the electrical tape to wrap it up. This is how it should look like after you're done soldering. Now we're going to measure our motor. Or if you have a scrap, you could also use that. We're going to use one of the scraps. We're going to take off one of the straps on the double-sided tape and stick it on the back of our bended bar. Now we're going to take off the other side of it and stick on the motor. This is how it should look like after it's done. Now we're going to grab our fan and attach it to the circle right in the middle of the motor. Now, as you can see, there's one single hole at the front of the car. Now we're going to get an M3 60mm screw and put it right through it. Now we're going to take our metal bended thing and make sure that the last hole is connected to the screw we just put in. And then we're going to use the M3 nut and screw it right in. Once the M3 nut is almost secured, we're going to use 2 nose pliers and tighten the nut. This is how it should look like after you're done. As you can see, now we're going to be using our breadboard. We're going to take our ISP driver, and as you can see, there's a tiny little dent in it at the top side. We're going to make sure that that's pointing to the back of our car. And then we're going to make sure that it connects both sides of the breadboard. Okay, now we're going to focus on the left side sensor. We're going to label that the red is for the 5 volts, the black one is for ground, and the blue one is for out. Now we're going to connect this A out one, the blue one, to A2 on the Arduino. We're then going to connect the black wire always to negative, and we are always going to connect this red wire to a positive side on the breadboard. Look like this when you're done. Now we're going to focus on the right side. Here, remember to connect the black wire to the negative and the red wire to the positive. Then, for the green wire, we're going to connect that one to A0. This is how it should look like once you're done. We're going to focus on the middle sensor. We're going to obviously put the red to the positive and the black wire to the negative. For the yellow wire, we're going to connect this one to A1. This is how it should look like. Now we're going to take two male-to-male jumper wires. We're first going to take a color red one and then connect it to a positive on the breadboard on one side, and the other side we are also going to connect it to the positive. Then we're going to get blue one of them and connect them to one side to the negative and the other side also to the negative. Now we are getting another male-to-male blue and red wire. But this time, the red wire is going to connect from the 5 volts to the positive, and the blue one is going to connect to the ground to the negatives. Now we're going to grab 8 jumper wires that are male to male. You can see this ISP has a tiny little dent in it on one side. We're going to make sure that the 8 wires are connected to that side and leaving one pin out. Now we're going to grab another jumper wire and connect it to one of the sides of the ISP pin. The positive side of the breadboard. Now we're going to take wire number 1 and insert it into the positive side of the breadboard. Now we're going to grab our second wire and insert it into the A9 pin on the Arduino. Now we're going to grab our third jumper wire and connect it to the jumper wire connected to the motor on the fan. Make sure that you grab the positive jumper wire on the fan. Now we're going to grab our fourth jumper wire and connect it to the negative side on the breadboard. We're also going to grab the red one, which is number 5, and connect it to the negative side of the breadboard too. Now we're going to grab our jumper wire from the fan and connect it to the 6th wire. Make sure you grab the negative wire on the fan. Now grab your 7th wire and connect it to the negative side of the breadboard. Now we're going to grab our battery and 2 wires connected to a battery connector. Now we're going to grab our soldering machine and another jumper wire and connect it to one of the wires from the battery. Make sure you do it to both. Now we're going to tape the wires together. Since our fan kept on falling, we're going to tie it with the rubber band onto our metal pole. Now we grab our battery connected to the jumper wires that we just soldered, and now we're going to connect the positive one to the 8th pin we left over next to the other 7 pin jumper wires connected together. Then we're going to grab the negative wire and we're going to connect it to the negative side of the breadboard. Now we're going to grab 2 greenish wires and then cut them in half. We're also going to get 2 blue wires and cut them in half. And then we're going to solder them onto our motors on the wheels wires, connecting it to the positive for the dark blue and the green for the negative. Now we're going to get our left side motor with our jumper wires. As you can see, the green is positive and the dark blue is negative. Now we're going to grab our positive wire and connect it to the MB1 pin. Now we're going to grab our screwdriver and screw in the screw above the pin we just inserted to tighten it. Now we're going to grab the negative wire and connect it to the MB2 pin. We're going to grab our screwdriver and screw in the pin we just put in. Now we're going to focus on the right side motor of the wheel. Now we're going to plug the positive wire of the right wheel to the MA1 pin. Now we're going to grab our screwdriver and screw in the pin we just put in. Now we're going to get our negative wire. Now we're going to connect the negative wire to the MA1. Now we're going to screw in the screw above our pin we just put in. Now we're going to grab another male-to-male jumper wire and connect it to the negative V pin. Now we're going to screw in the pin. Now we're going to grab our yellow wire and connect it to the negative side on the breadboard. Now we're going to grab two male to female jumper wires of the same color. Now we're going to connect one of the jumper wires to the enable B pin and then connect it to the positive side on the breadboard. Now we're going to connect one of the jumper wires to the enable A pin to the positive side on the breadboard. A close-up of where the pin should be. Now we're going to grab another jumper wire and connect it to the number 9 pin on the Arduino. Now we're going to connect that green wire to the A1 pin on the motor driver. Now we're going to grab another jumper wire and insert it into the pin 10 on the Arduino. Now we're going to get the female part of the jumper wire and insert it onto the A2 pin on the motor driver. Now we're going to put jumper wires in the 11 and 12 pins. We are also going to connect them on the motor driver on the B1 and B2 pin on the motor driver. Now, using a razor blade, we're going to cut off some of the rubber around the wire on the battery top to make sure that it's easier to solder. Now we're going to twist together another jumper wire with the one we just peeled. Make sure to tape it after soldering. Now, this is how it should look like after soldering. Now we're going to connect the positive wire on the top of the battery to the V plus pin. We're going to connect the negative wire on top of the battery to the ground wire pin on the motor driver. This is how it should look like at the end. As you can see, the robot is slowly moving towards the flame and putting the fire out. Thank you for watching. Come back soon.